Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babyar, and I'm the Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you are a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded Great Commission worker. I'm glad to have Dave and Liz Flynn joining us today, and we're speaking about, of course, missions and raising support and all that good stuff. They are with the Center for Mission Mobilization based out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. They have lived in the States. They have done ministry from the East Coast to the West Coast, but the last few years they have actually been living in Peru and are doing a wonderful job with mobilizing Latin Americans towards missions. But the reason we wanted to bring them on today is to just have a conversation about really support raising and visiting supporters and all that kind of stuff when you come back to the States. So Dave and Liz, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm sure it takes a lot of time and effort and planning when you're going to come back to the States to try and actually set up time to connect with your supporters and to make sure that they feel loved and valued, and also for you to have an opportunity to really maintain a relationship with them. That being said, I don't think that this is a new concept. There's a lot of missionaries that when they come back to the States, they set up a bunch of appointments and they try and get that all organized. But one of the problems that I've heard repeatedly is where they work the whole time. Like it sounds like this big work trip that, they want to connect with their supporters, but then they also need to catch their breath, but they have to raise some more support, but they also need to go see the family and the grandkid. So as you guys are veterans in raising and living off support, and now you live in South America, I really want to hear what some of the lessons are that you have learned when it comes to connecting with your supporters when you come back to the States. So Dave, first of all, let me just start with you real quick. How do you balance that mixture, or maybe you don't, but how do you balance that mixture of getting some rest and catching your breath a little bit, but also needing to connect with your supporters in those limited times you have back in the U.S.?
Yeah, and we don't really see it as a burden at all, visiting our supporters. Everybody loves talking about themselves. We love talking about ourselves, love talking about our ministry. And of course, if we can arrange a time to be with our supporters, it's just, we get encouraged and they get encouraged. And we see it as so valuable. We leave after spending a dinner with supporters, we leave on a cloud. Sometimes our hearts are just so lifted. And that's, to me, I don't see it as a burden at all. But there is, we do need to spend time with kids and family and all that as well. So we need to work it in. We have supporters all over the country. Most of our support comes from New Jersey, but then we have groups of supporters in Tulsa, in Oklahoma City, Northwest Arkansas, as well as Southern California. Okay. And it makes a little bit of a challenge.
Sure.
We don't want to spread ourselves too thin, but we also have reasons to be in those areas, and that helps out.
Allow me to interject real quick, though. I do get the feeling that you don't just wait a few years and then you talk to your supporters again. Like you actually, you're organized to maintain a relationship with them, even from Peru, where it's not like, oh, we have to go visit John and Jane Doe because we've ignored them the last 3 years, and if they're not going to give anymore if we don't show up and buy them dinner. That doesn't really seem to be your flow at all. Explain to us a little bit more about that whole donor maintenance relationship kind of stuff that you do, Liz.
Well, now that we live in Lima, we're able to call them directly from our home.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have something that helps us. It's a tool that we have to help us communicate with them. But when we do come to the States, we do make the time to see them, and we take them to dinner or lunch, breakfast, and we usually try to treat them because they are helping us in our ministry.
Yeah, they're your partners.
And, they want to know not just our ministry, but they really want to know about us. Yeah. So we're able to share, and it's the same with them as well. And we do pray for them. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. And
let me ask you this too. So when you're in Lima and you're doing all your busy work and stuff like that, obviously you just forget about your supporters and you just do the work and you ignore all the people praying for you until you go back to the States, right?
No. From Lima, it has been a little challenging, mainly because of our travel schedule. We travel quite a bit, but I do communicate via text as much as I can. I send prayer requests, or I ask them how I can pray for them if they come to mind.
Awesome.
I do that a lot.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to keep digging in on this because I think that this is a big need that historically a lot of missionaries that I have known personally over the last 30, 40 years of my life haven't done so well at this. And I get the feeling you do well with this. So this is why I keep pressing in on this. What does that mean practically in your schedule over the course of a week or a month? Like how much of your actual work hours time, even though I know you enjoy it, but it takes effort, how much of your time actually goes towards making sure that you are praying for and staying connected with your support team?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because we teach in the boot camps that you should tithe your time, which would be 1/10 of your week, which would be a full morning or a full afternoon.
Sure.
I need larger blocks of time than that. So basically, I may do it. Nothing may happen for a week or a couple of weeks, but we do try to communicate regularly through newsletters. So we will put together a newsletter that'll go out as a PDF, and that's usually every 2 months, usually no more than every 3 months. Something else will go out. Liz is constantly sending just little things to groups of our supporters, prayer requests, things that's happening.
Oh, great.
He's getting ready to go in and give a presentation here. Please pray for him. She's very good at that.
Oh, really?
But, there's times when we know we're going to be visiting the States and we know we're going to be hitting one of these areas where our supporters are.
Right.
That's when we say, okay, how can we plan to be able to visit as many of our supporters as possible in that area?
Yeah.
And we work it into whatever we're going to be doing in that area.
Right. Well, the reason I was asking this question is I wanted to illustrate the fact that when you do come back to the States and you are going to try and connect with your supporters, this isn't the first time you thought of them. You have continued to build a relationship. You've continued to pray with them, and you've also continued to send vision-driven communication that allows that to be a sweet time where they're not completely clueless about what's going on, but also you're not completely clueless about them and what's going on in their life.
Yeah,
you've checked out their social media, or you've texted with them. There's a relationship.
And when we visit them, they ask us questions. We can tell they've been reading our newsletters. We can tell they're asking us, how is this going? How is that going? And that's letting us know that the newsletters aren't just showing up and they're just deleting them without going through them.
Right.
As well.
Right. Just a brief sidebar here to our listeners. Perhaps you've wanted to recruit someone to your staff team, but aren't sure how to broach the topic of support raising without either scaring them away or shoving a full copy of the God-ass book into their hands. So wouldn't you like an 8-page booklet that might calm their fears and quickly unpack the basic how-tos from a practical and biblical perspective? We actually have a booklet like that. It's called The 5 Keys to Support Raising, and you can get these booklets in English or in Spanish at cmmpress.org. You'll receive an additional 10% discount if you use the code SRS Podcast. Now, a side little interesting note in all this is for those of you listening to this that have been through a Support Raising Solutions boot camp, you might recall that we talked about Lenny and Lisa, and that Lenny was a composite, kind of a type A high energy guy that everybody loved, but he didn't maintain his support very well and he ran into some problems. But Lisa was an actual person, and lo and behold, Lisa's boss that I often refer to was Dave.
That's right.
Dave we're sitting here talking to, and Lisa had just had some incredible maintenance habits that I think thousands of people have learned from now because of those boot camps. So, well, back to your story. When you come back to the States, tell us a little bit about your process. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you try to do so that your supporters feel honored, they feel connected, and they feel like at the end of the day, hey, that Dave and Liz Flynn, they're good investments. We want to continue to partner with them.
Okay. When we do come, we have a few networks in different parts in the Midwest.
Okay.
So if we're going to be in the Tulsa area, we do connect with the missionaries there, and we do the same.
Our supporters there.
Our supporters. And we do the same in Oklahoma City and Northwest Arkansas. And when we go to California, because we lived there for 6 years, we do the same thing. We have a Sunday school class at a big church there who fund our work. And we've come to know a lot of them very closely, and we'll keep in touch with them. And I'm trying to keep in touch with Facebook, but I'm not good at it. So that kind of goes by the wayside. Text and phone call works for me.
Okay, those are our smaller groups around, but the majority of our support comes from New Jersey. And that's a challenge because when we go back to New Jersey, we're usually there for only a week or two max. And so how do we see, 35 supporters in a week? It's next to impossible. Their schedules, our schedules. So what I usually do is I'll plan this in advance before we get there. I'll plan a dinner for Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night at some restaurant. It's usually a buffet restaurant. And we will send out professional type invitations to all our supporters, indicating each of these locations and to meet us there at this location. They need to tell us they're coming so we know.
Sure.
And if they can't make Monday night in one county, they can make Tuesday night perhaps in another county. Or Wednesday. New Jersey's small enough that they can kind of get there. And in this sense, our supporters know we are trying really hard to spend time with them. And we get to see probably the majority of our supporters through one of these dinners that we're having Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. The other good thing is that they get to meet some of our other supporters. So we may have, 4 or 6 people show up. We may have 15 people show up at one of these dinners. And they're getting to meet other people that are supporting us. And the one thing they have in common is us.
Yeah,
and so the focus of the evening is us. What's happening in our ministry, and they appreciate that.
That's great. That's great. So Liz, I know that you and Dave do not have the exact same personality. You're great, but you're not highly verbal. And you tend to, when the bright lights come on, we'll find you in the back of the room behind the curtain. And Dave, you are right on stage performing a one-man show. So, but you guys are awesome together, by the way.
Now, the interesting thing is she's the extrovert and I'm the introvert.
Yeah, and that does happen sometimes. We see that sometimes. So that is an interesting thing. But when you're in this situation, do you have to be really intentional about who does what, or does it kind of come natural, or do you really plan things out? Like, what do you do when 4 people show up or then 15 people show up? Like, what's your point? What is it you're trying to communicate other than, hey, we love you? I mean, that's great and that's good. At that point, people already probably don't feel like an ATM machine, but there's more to it than that. So what is it you're trying to do in those appointments? What's the vision? What's the goal, if you will?
I think we just want them to know we love them and we think of them, which we do, and we pray for them. So we want to know about what's going on with them as well, and that's how they all get to know each other. And I think that's important to us, because we go home full and we get to know exactly what's going on in their lives, and among themselves, when they share, they really connect. We have a few that have become friends because of that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's great.
And also, Dave does an update on our ministry.
Sure.
Because,
So
you're intentional to always have some sort of, 5-minute presentation? Or something like
it's not, the whole night is not all of what we're doing in ministry. It's a lot of it's just personal. What's going on in your lives? Hey, this is going on in our lives, our family and all that. And then we just have a little section at the end where we'll say, hey, this is what's going on in our ministry. We do some, if they have questions, we'll answer some questions, and they love that. But it's a small part. It's of the evening. The other part is, the majority of it is really just time.
It's relational stuff. You're not sitting them down and saying, all right, be quiet for the next 45 minutes while we show a slideshow and bring the projector and all that kind of stuff. That's great. That's great. All right, tell us a little bit more about your flow, because I got a feeling there's going to be some missionaries that are trying to think about how they should do it, or what they should do, or maybe even some other models that you tried that hasn't gone so well for you. Like, how did you get to the point where you're doing this, or what have you tried that hasn't worked for you? Not saying it won't work for other people, but what hasn't worked so well for you as you've learned about this over the years? We started off with this great plan that, every day we're going to be contacting a missionary, not a missionary, sorry, one of our supporters. Okay.
And that we're going to call them from wherever we are, and we're going to, pray for them, let them pray for us, share some things. And while that's a great, ambitious goal, it's just very, very time consuming. It's not realistic. I mean, the demands of being in ministry don't allow you to do that. You're traveling, and your whole schedule gets frustrated and everything else. Sure. And then you fall behind, and now you're feeling guilty.
Well, and even if you got everybody once a day for 60 or 70 days, there's not a break in there. Right. Certainly, that's not going to work out that well, because people go, "Oh, I can't. I'm gone till 2 weeks from now," and that's never going to work, right?
So when we tried a system where we said, okay, we've got about 85, 90 supporters. What if we contacted, everyone once a quarter? at least.
Okay.
And that's, in a sense, it's almost like the same thing. You're contacting someone just about every day. If you're contacting 90 supporters every 3 months. But that didn't work. So trying to put ourselves on these systems necessarily don't work for us, at least. Some people might be a little bit more disciplined with that.
Okay.
But again, it's the demands of ministry that sometimes come in and just frustrate it. And then we fall behind and then we're feeling guilty. So we don't want to get to that point where we're a slave to a system at all. I think as much as we can continue to communicate with sending out good vision-driven newsletters that they will read and they do appreciate. We get feedback on our newsletters all the time. People write back saying, great, it's not over-worded. It's quick to the point. What's been the main things? We share a little bit about the family, something they can read in a couple of minutes.
Right.
And then, of course, whenever we're going to be visiting in the States, that's good. The thing to think about is sometimes our supporters may not want a lot of follow-up. They may not want to be kind of contacted. So we need to try to be sensitive and get to know our supporters as well.
Boy, that's true.
Yeah, because we could be overdoing it.
Yeah, I actually had a supporter once who, in a very kind and courteous way, as I was trying to stay connected with him and build a relationship, he actually said, hey, you don't need to do this. And I said, excuse me? And he goes, I'm going to support the ministry, but I really don't need another buddy. I don't really need another friend. I love what you're doing. You don't really need to reach out to me that often. I was shocked that he was that overt with it, but also I had to go, okay, you know what? He told me exactly where he stands. Most people aren't going to do that. He doesn't want this. He does like the ministry. I guess I know where I stand with him, and he continues to support. And I think he actually reads the newsletters. He's not looking for a relationship. But by and large, I have found, and I'm curious if this is true for you too, most people, they're just glad that you care about them and you see them as more than an ATM machine.
What we also do to love on our donors is we do Christmas gifts, and we have brought them from Peru these last few years, and we mail them. And it really is an act of love because it does take a long time, and we handwrite all the addresses and put a little ribbon on Peruvian chocolate, and we mail it. And we get so many emails saying thank you, and so they know that we really care for them.
I just want to point out at this moment that I'm friends with 2 of your adult children, and I've never had any of your Peruvian chocolate. But I'm just digressing. I apologize about that. We should probably move on.
I'll remember that.
You don't cut that out. Leave that in. That's good stuff right there. Anyway, okay, so somebody's living overseas. They've probably tried and failed, and maybe they didn't totally fail, but they're looking for a better rhythm. What are some basic principles that they need to keep in mind as they're planning their trip home? Maybe they have 2 months. Maybe they have 2 weeks. What are the things that you think they need to keep in mind as they're preparing to go, all right, I need to connect with my supporters. I don't have all the time in the world. I don't have all the money in the world, but I know I need to do this, and I might even want to do this.
I think some people just wing it. Some people think I'm just going to go to those places where I'm going home and then try to set appointments. I would try to do it just like we teach in support raising. I would try to set those appointments beforehand. Let people know, hey, I'm going to be in town. Are you available? When are you available? When can we meet? Do that before you leave, while you're still overseas or in your land of assignment, so that and then work it into your schedule. Some people may just, I'm going to show up and, hey, everyone has a free schedule and they're going to be able to spend time with me. And they find out, no, people are busy. They've got meetings, they've got other commitments. And if you're in town for just a week, you may not be able to see your supporters if you don't plan that in advance.
Right.
So we try to do that all the time. Basically try to plan it in advance. Good communication with them, emails, phone calls if necessary, anything we can to get that on our schedule. And then we protect that.
Right. Right. Liz, what else would you add?
What else would I add? Just communication, basic communication all the time.
Yeah. Stay connected, right?
Stay connected.
Yeah. And in this day and age, I think that there's almost no excuse not to. True. I mean, there are some remote places in the world where you can't, but that's not the norm anymore. That's the exception.
That's right.
And there isn't a best way to communicate, but you need to find out the way to communicate to your supporters, right? So I love the fact that you even said, I just kind of do email and text and phone calls, and that's it. I know other people, they're very much in social media. WhatsApp is a big way that people use.
That's all we use. Yes.
Yeah. And Facebook. I mean, if your supporters are, you should be friends with all your supporters on Facebook. And if they're posting things, just occasionally liking or even making a comment, you can overdo that, and you don't want to give your supporters the idea that that's all you're doing is you're spending time on Facebook.
Right.
But occasionally you make a comment or something, and now that can't be the only thing you need to be doing. You also need to be communicating with your newsletters and other ways. But it is a good way to let them, because people check how many people like me, and of course they read their comments. And if they see you there, it's just another touch.
Right. Great. Well, hey, I want to thank you guys again for being on the podcast. I think this is at least the third time that we've recorded a conversation. So, like you guys, love you guys, think you're cool, but more than anything else, I'm just honored to partner with you in spreading the love of Jesus Christ throughout the world and trying to fulfill a great commission to every tribe, tongue, and nation as best we can. And you guys are definitely a huge part of that. So, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisinSolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.